And chair's here. We're all here and accounted for. We have 2 presentations tomorrow evening. First item of business is our consent agenda, approval of the minutes. C2 is a resolution authorizing contract change order number 1 for the 2021 annual needs stormwater infrastructure drainage repairs and rehabilitation project in the amount of $2,065,000 with New Pipe LLC of Mount Pleasant, South Carolina.
Okay, just ask on that.
Yes.
Is this come from the stormwater fund? Was this budgeted originally, or is this an addition?
Morning. This is addition to the original budget of the contract.
Okay. All right, but it's from the stormwater fund?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to have a bunch of these questions because there's a lot of funds this morning.
Thank you.
Okay. C3 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of 2 John Deere 6120E tractors with slope mower attachments from Deere & Company of Cary, North Carolina for $253,462.
Same question. This is stormwater fund? Okay, I'm getting a yes. Okay.
C4 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of 1 combination vac truck from Quip LLC for $305,252.
Okay, but this one's the fleet replacement fund, right?
This is the fleet.
Yes.
This
Okay.
is the fleet replacement fund, yes,
So
sir.
we got some from, okay, that's good.
Tony, I mean, we used to have the little parentheses out there. Do we, like where it was coming from? Do we stop doing that?
We did do that. We can go back to that practice.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. C5 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of 1 Caterpillar wheeled excavator from Gregory Pool Equipment Company of Charlotte, North Carolina for $232,690.76.
Let me ask a question. Tony, let me ask a question this way. All of these things, with the exception of C2, they were plugged into the budget.
Yes, sir, they were budgeted.
I just want to make sure.
Okay. Is that true with this one too, C5? Because it doesn't say where it's coming from. Oh, okay.
Why don't you just come up here and just hang out there by the podium?
This was in the fleet replacement fund.
Fleet replacement, okay.
Yes, sir. And that's the last one for me, I think.
Okay, good.
All right.
C6 is a resolution authorizing the award of a 1-year extension to the professional services contract to Wilmington Downtown Incorporated in the amount of $562,692 for the services provided in the Municipal Services District and authorizing the city manager to enter into that agreement on the behalf of the city. PH1 is an ordinance directing the housing inspector to vacate, close, and repair or demolish a dwelling at 518 North 11th Street as unfit for human habitation pursuant to Article 5, Chapter 16 of the City Code, and directing that a notice be placed thereon prohibiting its use or occupancy, and this was continued from our July 20th, 2021 meeting and August 3rd, 2021 meeting. PH2 is an ordinance amending the official zoning maps of the city to rezone property located at 1121 South Front Street, 1112 South 2nd Street, and 101, 104, 108, 112, 114, 115, and 116 Marsteller Street from LI Light Industrial District and R3 Central City Residential District to UMX CD Urban Mixed Use District, and this is also continued from our July 20th, 2021 meeting. PH3 is an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city to rezone property located at 2430, 2370, 2374, and 2346 Carolina Beach Road and 2365 Washington Street from CB Community Business and CS Commercial Services to MH Multifamily Medium High Density Residential, and this was continued from our September 2nd, 2021 meeting. PH4 is a resolution denying or granting a special use permit for property containing 10.06 acres located at 5814 and 5810 Camellia Lane.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
That special use permit is, of course, a quasi-judicial hearing, and for that reason, we would have to ask council to be in person present tomorrow night.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
With permission, can roll back to PH3. I know that was tabled due to some concerns about the zoning. and we came up with a plan. Is that plan ready to roll tomorrow night?
We have been working very closely with the applicant in that case, and I think that we may have something that may work even better. And that's something that we'll be bringing forward tomorrow night. I'm happy to go into it. We're still waiting to get a couple pieces of information back from the applicant today. We've been scrambling to get this put together in the right way.
No need to go into it now. I just want to make sure that everything was going according to whole. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, PH5 is an ordinance following show cause hearing concerning obstructions and unpermitted encroachments into the city property adjacent and connected to real property located at 719 Princess Street.
Can I ask a question? I
Yes,
think it's
sir.
probably for the city. What's the order of proof here? Because the ordinance that's attached talks about them showing cause, but us making the case, that I'm not sure who goes first.
It is a quasi-judicial hearing. It doesn't say that, but if you look at case
Yeah,
law that came
gotta be.
far after this ordinance was written, it's clear that we'd have to treat it that way. That ordinance is very unusual. It has what I would call hyper due process around the removal of an encroachment. We have talked to the applicant, and that the applicant has been represented by an attorney, and if this comes forward for action tomorrow night, then we will work through the process with council at that time. But I will tell you that staff will be asking to continue this item. We're working with the applicant. Because it's quasi-judicial, I can't go into any of the details, but we've been working with them, and we're hoping to resolve this.
Good.
PH6 is a public hearing for your 2020-21 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, better known as CAPER, for CDBG and home funds. Our PH7 is a resolution authorizing the City of Wilmington to pay economic development incentives. And then ordinances. 01 is an ordinance making appropriation of $42,464 to engineering professional services. 02A is an ordinance making a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $1,432,336 from the Parking Facilities Fund balance to the Second Street Deck Repair Project to award a construction contract. 02B is a resolution authorizing award of construction contract to Capital Restoration and Waterproofing Incorporated for the Second Street Parking Deck Repair Project in the amount of $1,646,355. 03A is an ordinance appropriating funds for police headquarters chiller and evidence room HVAC improvements in the amount of $180,000. And 03B is a resolution awarding a contract in the amount of $729,000 to Superior Mechanical Services Incorporated of Greensboro, North Carolina for the police headquarters chiller and evidence room HVAC improvements. Resolutions. R1 is a resolution adopting city policy on the naming and renaming of city streets, programs, facilities, and property, and the placement of private memorials on city property. And then R2 is a resolution declaring Wilmington Fire Station Number 3, located at 3933 Princess Place Drive, as surplus property to be donated for the public purpose of providing affordable and/or no-cost housing, education, employment, and life skills to young men in our community. And then R3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the state of North Carolina relating to the distribution of opioid settlement funds within the state of North Carolina. And then R4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement with New Hanover County relating to the distribution of opioid settlement funds within New Hanover County. And then reports. RP1s is Council's Appointments Committee for Boards and Commissions, and Mayor Pro Tem Haynes, the chairman of that committee, will give us a report. With that, that concludes this agenda. Any further items?
Mr. Mayor, we have 3 items for you this morning, the third of which is the closed session. But the first one is a request from the Salvation Army for the city to participate in the cost of road construction. We'll be glad to answer questions after they do presentation.
On? Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, good morning. I'm Bruce McGuire. Most of you know me. I'm on the advisory board for the local Salvation Army. We have 2 or 3 other of our advisory board members here today. Could you please raise your hand? we are. Salvation Army is requesting a grant of $1.3 million from the city's American Rescue Plan funds for the construction of the new roadway that will connect North 30th Street to Carnegie Avenue on the site of our new campus. Briefly, the history of the project. In 2016, after almost 2 years of negotiations, the Salvation Army purchased the 22-acre site next to the Creekwood subdivisions in MLK Parkway. We paid a little over $1 million for it. Around the same time, Ncdot and the city started discussions about building another roadway that would connect North 23rd Street through North 26th Street to Carnegie Avenue, where it would connect to the new roadway on our site. By providing an alternate access to Creekwood North, DOT could then close the Carnegie Avenue connection to the parkway. It would also provide better access to our property, so we wouldn't have to use the residential streets in the Creekwood subdivisions. Our purchase included a small lot, 1612 Carnegie, at the northwest corner of our site. This lot allows our new road to connect to Carnegie Avenue. The city and DOT agreed to build the road, split the $5 million cost. For the city, this was seen as an investment in economic development, because once the Salvation Army built and moved into our new facilities, our facilities downtown, which are in prime location, they could be sold and developed, providing jobs and tax revenue. Since that time, next slide, please. Since that time, we've gotten 2/3 of the way through the design work for the facilities. To date, we've spent over $250,000 in design fees. So you can see at the top, that would be the new shelter, which we'd be able to accommodate families, which we can't now. And the one below that is the new community center. And there's a multi-purpose athletic field, gymnasium, classrooms. That would be where our community services are provided. So as we went through this process, as you can see, we found we did not need the entire site. So we decided to look at subdividing the extra land so it could be sold to community service-based nonprofits and create an overall campus that provided an array of services. Next slide. In doing so, that's sideways, but you can see these 4 wetland areas. The 2 of the larger ones encroach into the area we want to subdivide. So they pretty much, because you have to stay there's a 25-foot setback. So it made it pretty much impossible to get any efficient parcels. So we applied to the Corps of Engineers in the state for a permit to fill the wetlands. June of 2020, they gave us the permit. Next slide. And earlier this year, we started. And then by July, it was finished, all the wetlands were filled. Next slide. Now, that vegetation there is chest high now. It's doing real well. Next slide. So this road we're asking to fund will provide direct access for Creekwood residents and other residents to the new core community center and to the community service-based nonprofits that will be on the new parcels. It might also be used as an alternate access point for Eden Village, which is directly adjacent to it. Service and construction vehicles could use our roadway for access to Eden Village rather than the residential streets of Creekwood North. We've also been in discussions with Eden Village. They have interest in purchasing 1 or 2 of our parcels for expansion when they get built out. So, as originally conceived, the roadway was only to serve our new campus. With this funding from the city, we can move forward with getting it built, make the new parcels available to other nonprofits. The proceeds from the sale of these parcels will provide us with an additional $700,000 to $900,000 capital funding. So a $1.3 million investment can have a multiplier effect that will get us that much closer to having both phases operational and built. Major Kenneth Morris is our new Corps officer. He was assigned to Wilmington this past June, and he's quickly gotten up to speed with everything. He brings with him a lot of experience with capital projects. We all feel very lucky to have him, and I'll turn things over to him. Major?
Thank you. Honorable Mayor Bill Saffel, City Manager Tony Candle, Deputy City Manager Tom Morton, and City Council members. As the new commanding officers, my wife and I would like to thank the city for their longtime partnership with the Salvation Army Cape Fear and our mission to help our at-risk community. We thank you for your close working with the previous majors, Mark and Leanne Craddock, and we look forward to working with you as well. Though we did not know we would have the opportunity to serve in this area, for the past 5 years, we have stayed in contact with the Craddocks and the Watts before them, so I have been watching this project for some time. As our strong and healthy advisory board and the Craddocks gathered information from me, it enabled us as a group to become more organized and to become even more focused on this project. So I can assure you that during the transition, we have not lost a beat and may be beating even faster. As was mentioned earlier, from extensive research over the past few years, we have learned that our new Build Hope campus is where it needs to be. Though we will still serve our full 5-county area, Creekwood, Maiden Park, and the surrounding community with their unique needs will have, let's say, the home court advantage. Others will be served through our thrift stores and outlying social service offices. This project will bring jobs to the community. We will not only provide help with rent, utility bills, food, but will also provide after-school programs, including youth and adult character-building programs. With our partnerships with other nonprofit organizations, such as the Herald Center and the Continuum of Care, we will be able to refer these people to other services as well. As was mentioned, we are also looking into the possibility of selling some of our extra land to other agencies that can bring in additional services as well. Our buildings will comply with current hurricane wind specifications to enable the campus to serve as a hurricane shelter. We have already invested close to $1.5 million into this project and have raised over $5.1 million towards our estimated $13 million total cost. Your contribution will pay for the main road running through the complete project and will affect all phases of the project. So with this generous foundational gift, we see no need to come back with a later request for any further funds from the city for this project. I have already spoken with our architect and asked him to come up with a separate contract for the site work. Though we need to sell our present shelter before we can pay for the full construction of the first phase, with your help, we are ready to start on the site work as soon as the plans are approved. Once this road is completed, it'll be better for both of us if we give it back to the city. In that way, you can better protect us and the community with your police and fire protection. It will give your services better access to the community and will give them additional access in and out. Finally, a quick review of company policy. No funds come from corporate for building projects. It all has to be raised locally. And more importantly, no funds collected for projects are used for corporate administrative costs. In our regular programming and operation, we spend less than most, if not all, other nonprofits on administrative and fundraising costs. Some say we do not beat our own drum very well. Well, that is intentional. We want as much money as possible to be used helping others get back on their feet again. We thank you again for your time, and we appreciate any consideration that can be made concerning our request. May God continue to bless Wilmington and our city leadership. We are open now for any questions for me or Bruce.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add a couple of clarifying remarks. First of all, Dylan, if you could put the map back up there, please. The sign, the Scientific Drive Extension Project was one that we undertook in order to facilitate the Salvation Army's move to this property. That project is now several years old and was originally estimated to be approximately $5 million, a little over $5 million, 50% of which would be paid by Ncdot, 50% of which would be paid by the city. Recent estimates for that road extension now place the price at a little over $10 million. And the preliminary read on the contract is such that the city would be responsible for anything over the state's initial $2.5 million contribution. We're going to ensure that we're reading that contract correctly before we come back with a hard statement on that, but do understand that the cost of that road could go from $2.5 million to almost $7 million, a little over $7 million. So we will be back before you with regard to cost on that project. The second item is the ARPA funds cannot be granted to the Salvation Army for this purpose based upon some nuances in the regulations. Essentially, we would be using money that would be replacement revenue for the city, and therefore the city would have to expend it on the road. So instead of granting the $1.3 million to the Salvation Army, the city would need to actually build that street. And while the cost estimate that the Salvation Army supplied was very intricate, we'd still need to go over it with our own folks to make sure that we have the correct cost on that project. If council is so inclined to go ahead and pay for this road, there is $1.75 million that we left in the ARPA money that was available for council to use at their discretion. We do not know whether the $1.3 million will be the ultimate cost or whether it'll be more than that. Again, if council's inclined to go through with the request from the Salvation Army, then we would advocate that you either cap the $1.3 million as your contribution, and anything over and above that would have to be paid for through Salvation Army funds, or your alternate would be just for us to build the road and absorb the cost regardless of what the cost may be. I believe that's all that I want to say at this point in time about their request.
Tony, is that roadway been designed?
Pardon me?
Is it designed? Do we have any design specs on that?
We do not have design specs on it. We have the cost estimate that was given to us by the Salvation Army, but we certainly can go back and go over it with their engineers. I'm sure that there's good specifications.
So there are specifications on this particular road?
Yes, sir, but we would have to go over those. And again, this would be an additional project for our team, an additional road project for our team.
Were on those preliminary design aspects, was the Department of Transportation involved in those designs?
I do not know.
Would Mike know? Mike, would you know?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thanks for the opportunity to be here. Your question, I'm a little confused. Are you referring to the road from 23rd Street to 26th Street, or the new road Salvation Army is proposing?
I'm talking about the one that comes in, I guess, the one that's coming in off of the 23rd, going to the property where we rerouted it, taking it out of Scientific Drive and moving it over.
The North Carolina Department of Transportation is managing that project.
They are?
Yes, sir.
But is that the project we're talking about?
Yes, sir. That's the one that's gone from a little over $5 million to a little over $10 million.
So y'all put your blessings on it?
Well, we received an updated estimate a few months ago related to that design. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mike,
Yeah.
what's the update from the NCDOT on the Scientific Drive roadway? I mean, weren't all of those projects dead in the water
So
for a period of time?
Sorry, Councilman Spears. So NCDOT does have funding program for the 23rd to 26th Street project. I believe it's right-of-way in 22 and construction in 24. I would need to verify that for you. The department is currently and has been going through updating their cost estimates, and that's where this updated cost estimate came from, is the department's updated over 450 cost estimates for projects in the state's transportation improvement program. And so that's an exercise they've been completing over the past several months. And so this is the updated cost estimate that they provided recently.
Okay. Mr. Rodenberg?
The cost estimate that you just referred to is the one that's now at 10 million.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But according to what Tony just said, the original was 5 and they agreed to 2.5. And now with the new $10 million, they still are holding at the 2.5.
Yes, sir. The way that the contract was written is anything above and beyond the $2.5 million that was contributed by the state would be borne by the city. Now, there is an opportunity to potentially go back and renegotiate that contract with them. But again, we would want to bring forth some additional information.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Mike, they're asking us to build the Blue Road up there, to be simplistic about it. So what you all are talking about is the red one, what we'd call the Scientific Drive one. That seems to be financially not feasible if we have to stick with that contract. So can we get out of that? Can we move on and just do the Blue Road and not participate in the Red Road?
There is what I would call an escape clause in the contract with Ncdot, but as part of that contract, the city would be responsible for 100% of the project costs associated with the 23rd to 26th Street connection that have been spent to date.
Do you know what that is?
It's a little over $1 million.
So you would add that to the 1.75, almost 2 million for the Blue Road?
We'd prefer to talk about it as two separate projects, the Red Road and the Blue Road, and let us come back to you with a firm determination on interpretation of the contract and our exact cost for the red portion. The blue portion, I think, can be built without the red portion. It can be connected to Carnegie. It could be connected to 30th. So I think, you could talk about the gift or the grant of the money to the Salvation Army without having to talk about Scientific Drive. I just wanted to let you know that Scientific Drive was up in the air right now, so to speak.
Well, you can talk about that and talk about anything. But the reality is, if you build the Blue Road, are we still committed for the money, maybe $7 million for the Red Road? I mean, they go together.
We do believe we are committed for that, but we also believe there is an out clause in it.
Mr. Anderson, and then Mr. Rodenberg.
I hear what you're saying, Margaret, but I think, I guess what I'm hearing Tony's staff ask is, do we support the Blue Road? We've got funds from the federal government to do it. There's a domino effect going, if we can get, that's like I forget his rank, but gentleman from the Salvation Army said if they can sell their project downtown, it's in a prime location that's connected all to that. It gets close to our the property we've had proposals out for. I just think it makes a lot of sense, the needs of that part of the city. I would support it. If that's what we end up with all we have, but then we'll have to debate whether we get involved with how far we go with the Red Road. So, I don't know what you're looking for, Tony. If you're looking for kind of a thumbs up from a majority or what?
I think the Salvation Army is requesting of you $1.3 million for the construction of a road. What I'm telling you is I'm not sure that those estimates are accurate, and we'd like the opportunity to do our own if you're inclined to move forward with this proposal.
In detail again, how do the COVID, the federal funds work?
Jennifer, will you come forward and help us with this, please? Interim City Manager, Deputy City Manager Jennifer Moretti is most familiar with the ARPA regulations.
Yes, good morning. With the U.S. Treasury guidance as well as North Carolina general statutes, the ARPA funds cannot be used to pay for a road as it is not responding to a negative impact of the pandemic. However, there is a section in there where we can calculate what our revenue loss was and then spend that on what we normally could spend on our own general fund expenses. So since the city is able to build roads, we could use some of that calculated revenue loss to build the road. The other part of it is we cannot build a road on private property. So they would have to dedicate the property to the city, and then we could build the road.
It's a quick question. Who owns the road now?
There is, the property on which the road would be located is currently Salvation Army property. There is no road there now at this point in time.
Okay. All right.
And also, I want to reiterate that this will be an additional capital project for our capital project team, just so you know.
Okay. That's what I'm hearing you saying, is that what we really want to get is our folks to get an estimate of what it might cost to build that road, and then you're going to come back.
We need to verify the cost on that road, yes, sir.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I just want to make a clear statement here that I'm not opposed to the Blue Road. What I'm concerned about is that instead of spending $2.5 million for the Red Road, which will get you to the same location, we maybe would be on the hook for almost $8 million. That's what I hear you saying.
Yes, ma'am.
And now you're shaking your head.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it. I think it's great. I think Eden Village is fabulous. I think the Salvation Army being out there is fabulous. Maybe I don't remember this correctly, but I thought at one point when they're building downtown, they were going to donate to the city. And now what I heard the gentleman saying is they're selling that to help pay for their cost.
When we originally entered into discussions with the Salvation Army, there was discussion about them donating the property to the city. As they got further into the project, they found their financial needs required them to sell the property in order to make the dream come true, so to speak, out on MLK.
I'm supportive of their being out there. I'm just concerned about our sort of twisting ourselves into a pretzel to find a way to use ARPA funds for building a road, which really doesn't have anything to do with COVID.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Well, were we just real premature, 2 or 3, because it seemed like this has been quite a while back, and it has been at least a couple of years. What happened? I mean, we all know in this world that we live in that estimates, they're not good for 60 days, and this one is extreme. So I guess, and it doesn't matter how we got where we are, that's out the window. But one of the goals, in addition to having this fine organization locate out there, was to close off that entrance off of MLK. And the Blue Road accomplishes that if it has the Red Road.
Yes, sir.
But otherwise, it doesn't.
Yes, sir. It means Cornegate needs to remain open to turnkey, and that the Red Road may not be built. And again, I don't want to discredit anything Mike said. I'm certain that his legal opinion is correct of the contract, but Mr. Cheatham has now taught me over the years that I need to get my own attorney to take a look at it first. So I'd like to make sure that the city attorney's office has the opportunity to review the DOT agreement, make sure that our interpretation is correct, and then determine what the cost will be. If the cost will be $10+ million and we are going to be responsible for $7+ million, then we will be back in front of you to tell you that that's the case, and we will tell you what your options are to either get out of the contract or to move forward with it.
One question, and if you've answered it, I'm sorry I didn't hear it, but what is the cost of just the Blue Road?
It's estimated by the Salvation Army to be $1.3 million. We'd like to verify those numbers.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
That's a good observation, Charlie, and because that's very true. The Blue Road without the red road and Carnegie being closed is not ideal for the residents of Turnkey. Just want to put that out in the air, being a resident of Turnkey.
I think everybody recognizes that and has recognized it from the beginning. It's just a matter of the cost going up so much.
But then, Tony, this is all predicated on the Salvation Army selling their building, selling their property. Do you put in the infrastructure first, waiting for them to do that? Because I know that the starts and stops on this thing is based on the fact that the Salvation Army needs to sell their property for us to make the commitment to go ahead and start with the project. Is that correct?
I would say so, yes, sir, but you need to speak with them. I don't know
Okay.
what the juxtaposition is of the sale of the property versus moving on with the construction of the new project.
Gotcha. All right. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Tony?
Mr. Mayor, we have with us today Holly Childs, President or Executive Director of WDI, and she is going to do a presentation for us on the outreach program that her organization is now undertaking through the contract with MSD funds. So, Holly?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Boy, it won't be about roads, I can tell you that. So it will be about downtown, this presentation. We're going to speak specifically, and I won't take too much of your time. I know you've had a long morning, and then you have tomorrow night's meeting as well. But I wanted to just talk with you a bit about a program we're proposing for our municipal services district. We've talked about expansion of the municipal services district in various forms over the past few years while WDS has managed it since 2017 and it's been in existence. And so I'd just like to talk to you about a new initiative that we have. Thank you. So the existing MSD area you're familiar with, the Central Business District, it's 70 blocks, went into effect in July 2017. And the purpose of the MSD is additional safe and clean for that area of the city above and beyond what's normally provided, as well as beautification, economic development, and targeted marketing and branding. So whenever we presented last, I think it was March, April, last year, the previous year's annual report, we talked about some of the things we'd be doing for this year differently. Number one, of course, is to continue to focus on, as the MSD Advisory Council recommends, safe and clean as our two primary services, but also to work with the city police, social service organizations, and other partners throughout the city and county to strategize on how to best provide outreach to our unsheltered population. So in thinking through that over the past 6 months, we have been working on how we could address that situation and create a specialist position that would really speak to helping the unsheltered population to get services. So as part of that, we did a review of the current analysis within the downtown. The unsheltered population is continuing to grow, and we've heard that many of these people, they need help, of course, to access social services. We want to provide a conduit to that gap in the system. We have a lot of great resources, and we're certainly not trying to take the place of any of those social services resources throughout the city and county. But many of them are outside the downtown. So what we would like to do is connect the people who are out on the streets with the services themselves. We will be looking to provide a trained social worker then to our MSD ambassador staff, who would then dedicate his or her full-time efforts, 40 hours per week, probably not 9 to 5, as you might imagine, on the streets to build trust and relationships with the individuals who are out there, the unsheltered population, and connect them to the services they need, the very specific services, in a timely manner. So this person will be trained, as I said, a social service worker, a social worker that will provide that type of specific assistance. So we realize that these people that have been on our streets in the city, they are our residents too. We need to provide services to them. They're vulnerable, they're highly visible, and trying to connect them to the services they might need, whatever those may be, we feel is incumbent upon us as an organization looking at the clean and safe of downtown to also serve every one of our residents in making life better for them. Outreach is provided by our MSD workers. There are no barriers. Our MSD workers, our ambassadors, are out on the streets every day, so they know folks that are out there. They've developed relationships. They do not have, however, our current ambassador team, social service training. So providing a social service, a trained social worker will supplement that staff. And I think most importantly that it is a fragmented social services system. Different people have different needs. There are a lot of different services, and it can be a highly confusing system. So trying to help people through that, whether it's whatever type of services they need, and whatever type of entitlements that they may be able to get to help them with those services. Insurance, as you know, is a huge barrier to folks getting the services they need. So we'll be helping with that. So the street outreach person, our specialist, will be building those relationships, as I mentioned, really understanding the reason why someone's on the street, what's been their story to date, is there any way that we can help them problem solve for them, and then to really advocate for them, to be their person who helps them through the system, and document how they go through the system and how things go for them. We want this to be something that is, basically hand-holding through the system. So the street outreach specialist position will record the daily activities. Our ambassadors are all equipped with a smart system, a system that lets them track their activities and what they do throughout the day, their locations, et cetera. They will also be tracking how they serve this population and making sure that we're doing a good job. We understand the council, the public has expectations that this position, provide these services. So we want to make sure that those are met. We'll also provide regular reports to the MSD operations manager, so our operations manager that works with us, along with myself at WDI, of progress being made. Budget impacts. So this year, with the revaluation, the budget for the MSD was increased by $118,000. That by percentage line item included an increase of $78,000 in personnel. We felt that it made a lot of sense to, while we had this opportunity to support another position, to make it this street outreach specialist. And then on top of that, we did take a set aside of about $1,500 for transportation to the services people may need, because another big barrier is getting people to the services. So project specifics, as I mentioned, it's been the #1 concern that we've heard from business owners and residents, just the increase, and how to help the people who are on the streets, and how to really connect and get the services to the people. So we have been working with Mayor Saffo over the past couple of months about how to effectively address those concerns, and the mayor has really shown a lot of leadership in leading the street outreach specialist pilot project, and we like to see this as a pilot project for the next year. So we would go from now until the rest of the fiscal year, until the end of June, and then report back to you on the results after 9 months of implementation of the program. We did have the manager of the program nationally come to Wilmington. He was here last week. He was here the 12th through the 15th and did an initial baseline study of the unsheltered population within the city and our local resources that are available. Those results will be out later on this week, and I'll be glad to share those with the council once they're out. I think the most encouraging initial results that I heard was that from the folks that he talked to out on the street, most of them, if not all of them, were very excited about the concept and said they would love to have help. I think this is something that has been needed and that we're really excited to be able to provide. So we'll be managing this program for the city as part of our overall delivery of MSD services and provide metrics. After 1 year, then the advisory committee would decide whether the program has met its goals or not, and then see about going forward. So, any questions?
I'd just like to make a comment, Holly. I appreciate bringing this. I know you've been looking at some of the other cities around the country that you've also done work in, like in Cincinnati. And I know Louisville, Kentucky has similar program. And it has been one of the missing pieces when we created the 10-year plan in homelessness many years ago, and is to connect the services with the unsheltered population. And as we've seen that population grow over the years, especially in the aftermath of Hurricane Florence, I think this is a great way to make certain that those folks can get the help they need if they want it. And I've seen it work. I know that several years ago, I know with the 10-year plan, there was a real push to try to connect these folks with services. We found that people had disabilities and were able to access through the Social Security funding and what have you, monies that could help them get into that supportive type housing that they need. And it took a certain amount of unsheltered people off the street and help them get the help necessary. This would be ongoing, and this is something that we've been needing for quite some time, and I appreciate your leadership and MSD's leadership in moving this thing forward and really starting to go and help these folks get the services needed, because they are out there, and there are a lot of service providers that provide a lot of services for our unsheltered population, but I think a lot of folks, unfortunately, are not aware of those services, and just connecting the services with those folks would be is huge. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Holly, I appreciate the service as well. Just a couple questions. One, do you have any idea what the county is doing as relates to the homeless population?
So we've been working closely with the county as well. I know Tafana Bradley has also been instrumental. She's also on our WDI board, as is Margaret Haynes. We have a great collaboration between the city and county to kind of see how to get these services aligned. And what we do want to make sure of, Councilmember Barnett, is to make sure that we're not duplicating any effort. So whatever effort the county would have, if we could focus on the downtown, and maybe there's additional opportunity for the county outside the downtown, or there's plenty to go around and work to be done. So I think we're going to make sure that all of that's coordinated with the social service agencies as well as between the city and county.
Okay, and then the other I guess comment I would have is probably in future, could we look at getting interns to help with this project, like maybe interns from UNCW or I don't know, Cape Fear doesn't have any interns, I imagine.
Sure, and I don't know if they have an active social work program,
Right.
but I think that's a great idea as we get further along in the project. We are actually interviewing and working on towards getting this position filled right now, and so with Block by Block, the national provider, and so we are hiring a licensed social worker for this initial assessment and kind of moving forward in the program. But I think after, especially whenever we're tracking the metrics and those kinds of things, that's a great idea.
Cool. And it will be paid through what's already been budgeted, right?
Correct.
Got it. All right. Good
Anybody
job.
else? Okay. Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, the third item is the closed session, and I believe you have before you the motion to go into closed session.
And we will have closed session here in these chambers.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Okay? So I'm going to, I'll just wait for everybody to kind of, is there a motion to enter into a closed session pursuant to the provisions of General Statute 143-318.11A3 and A5 and A6 in order for the City Council to consult with the city attorney regarding the potential legal claims and a workers' compensation matter, including City of Wilmington versus Amerisource Bergen Drug Corporation in U.S. District Court, EDNC file number 7-18-CV-00081-FL, and then the City of Wilmington versus John C. Golden and Mary E. Golden, New Hanover County Superior Court file number 20-CVS-2952, and City of Wilmington versus Danny B. Kerr and wife Ann M. Kerr and trustee, Incorporated Trustees for Wachovia, New Hanover Superior Court file number 20-CVS-2953, and to instruct staff regarding the city's negotiating position concerning the possible acquisition of real property.
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Councilmember Anderson, second by Councilmember Barnett. Discussion, all in favor of that motion. We'll have to take a roll call vote. Mayor Pro Tem, how do you vote? Okay. Councilmember Reinbark, how do you vote? Councilmember O'Grady, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Anderson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilmember Barnett, how do you vote? Councilmember Spears, how do you vote?
Aye.
And the chair is aye. So that we will be going now into closed session. Are we set to go, or do we need a few minutes to set up? Okay, just a few minutes? Okay, let's just set it up for a few minutes.
And, Mr. Mayor, we'll have to ask everyone to step out.
position concerning the possible acquisition of real property, and no other action was taken. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Rivenbark made a motion, and Mr. Barnett seconded that, and with that, we stand adjourned.